just like the sky doesn't have to be blue in your paintings, we don't need to make our rainforests all green. The class sample is basically green, but I always encourage my students to experiment with the colours and to make it unique, make it their own. Our next step is to paint some of our background trees. Now, because we paint them in a subdued colour, they do stay in the background because our colours in the background needed to be faded out. I've tipped some more paint, concentrated paint, onto another ice cream container lid. The colours that I've used here, the golden yellow and the violet, which mixed together make a brown very, very easily. And because I want it faded out a little bit, I've got a little bit of white in there as well. Now, I've obviously changed from a sponge to a brush because I want to make strokes across the surface, quite fine strokes. I find it easier to start at the bottom and paint the trees in. Now, when I'm painting the trees, I want to add a bit of character, a bit of movement, so I might make them on angles. So to start off with, I'm just painting them in, and then I can go back and work again over the surface and add more paint. Taking it right up into the sky and out the bottom, right out the top of my picture. So let's put in a few different trees in the background, some of them close together, some of them even overlapping, so that we're creating our forest background. It doesn't matter if they come and go, because that's what happens in the forest. We see some of the trunks and not some of the others. The main thing is that they stay in the background, so we don't want the colours too strong. At this stage, we don't do any stitching on the trees, but we wait till the quilting process, when we just add a subtle line of quilting in a matching thread down the side of these trees. Once again, that's to get them to stay in the background. Okay, so we've got a few there to go on with. We'll just do another one up here. Okay. It's good to provide a little bit of a link between these elements by, if it's within the nature of the tree, to cross over some of the trunks so that we get a bit of harmony, we get some of the elements being linked together. And getting some of the lines on an angle certainly adds movement to your work. When you come to quilt it, remember which tree is in the front. So the quilting lines will need to cross right over the tree in the background. Putting our painted piece to the side to dry, we're now going to look at some of the things that we can do on the surface. Now, in the quilt behind us here, this large fig tree is actually painted onto another piece of fabric and then fused on the surface. Often we can't find commercial fabrics to suit our purpose that work well for trees. Often we need them to be darker at the bottom, lighter at the top, and to have other colours in them. So one way we can get round this is to paint the trees ourselves. Now, we've started off with a fresh piece of white cotton fabric, and because we're not wetting it this time, I've ironed it onto a piece of freezer paper on the back so that I've got a nice stiff surface to work on. You can either trace your tree or you can draw it freehand on the white fabric using a black pen, something that will stand out on the surface. Now, once again, we're using the paint quite concentrated. I've actually added a few more colours to the palette this time so that we can really play around with the colours on the surface. I'm using a fairly small paintbrush, a flat brush, which means that I can apply the paint more easily. The fabric really soaks up the paint, so we do need to keep adding more to get the required coating that we need. Now, think about where the sun is coming from. Would one side of the tree be lighter than the other? And if so, we would paint that first. So looking at my drawing here, I've decided that I'm going to make the right-hand side lighter. So mixing up a little bit of the yellow and white together, I'm going to apply that on the right side of the tree. Now you'll notice that I'm not very good at colouring in because I'm going right out over the lines. This is deliberate because later on when I cut it out on the line, I don't want any of the white fabric showing through. So gradually add more colours, filling in the surface. Be brave, put lots of different colours in there. When you look at trees that artists have painted in galleries, often they'll have turquoise, red, orange, lots of beautiful colours. So the trees don't have to just be brown. It would also give you a wonderful palette to stitch on later on. You can see when I'm brushing over the lighter areas that I still have it quite light on that right side, and then perhaps I'll go to a little bit of black added on the other side to make it quite dark. That way we are using the light really effectively, because light is a wonderful, powerful thing to use in your work. So keep painting until you've covered all of the tree. And remember, keep introducing those beautiful colours through your branches. Once you've covered the whole tree, once again we put it to the side to let it dry. If you're in a hurry, you can hurry up the process using a hairdryer. Once the fabric is dry, we then iron it, and we're ready to cut out our tree, ready to put on the surface. Once the fabric is dry, iron it to make it permanent, and then it's time to put some fusible web on the back. Now make sure that you cover all your tree on the back with the fusible web, and then you can cut out along your drawn lines. When the paint dries, you'll be able to see your pen line, and you'll be able to cut out the shape of your tree. This is one that I was using in class today with the students, and you can see that the fusible web is on the back, and I'm just going to remove the paper, and then of course all we need to do is put it into position and iron it down, and there it is in our work. Because it's sitting on the surface, it'll certainly come forward in our work, which is where we want it to be. After that, our next step is just to stitch down the sides of the tree to keep it in there, and then we can go back with all our lovely thicker threads and embellish it, creating moss and lichen and other textures. So now it's time to go and have a look at some bigger quilts in my exhibition and see how I've used some of these techniques.